What's way more sadistic than it seems? Not letting kids leave class when they need the bathroom. My parents told me when I was a kid that if I had to go to the bathroom and a teacher wouldn't let me, to just ignore them and go. Only did it a couple times and nothing bad happened. That's what I was told after I peed my pants in elementary school. When my kids started school I told them the same thing. When I was 6 I sharted in class BC. My teacher was a giant control issues. Same. A full-on baby turd in my pants for the whole day because I hadn't signed my name on my art project. I'd simply forgotten and my teacher didn't let me go to the bathroom as punishment. I was 7. Scary or humiliating pranks or public shaming for punishment of young children. I hate it when people are mean to kids, anyone, really, but 10,000% kids, and call it in good fun. If the target isn't having fun, it's not fun. It's just sadistic and mean-spirited. Yes. My mom used to tease me and make fun of me for things to no end growing up, because you have to learn to laugh at yourself. Yay, it kinda doesn't work exactly like that. It can absolutely be valuable to not take things too seriously, but to be able to do that in a healthy, balanced way you need to actually be built up, not just torn down. You just spilled a little bit of juice on your outfit? That's no big deal, we can roll with this. Someone just made fun of you and hurt your feelings? Yeah, words can hurt. It's okay if you don't think it's funny and need reassurance. By the way guys, if you are enjoying this video so far, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It will help us out quite a bit, and if you don't enjoy the videos in the future anymore, you can always unsubscribe. Let's get back to the video. Tickling. Especially when you tell them to stop and they don't. Yes. It can be a form of torture. It has been used as torture before, usually on people that were too high-ranking to be tortured with pain, like nobles. Welp. Now I'm gonna have to research tickle torture, because my brain has decided it's gonna be my hyperfixation of the day. Be careful, it's also a fetish and there are some interesting videos too. I can't remember what it's called, but there is some weird documentary about tickle wrestling competitions, or something similar. Making someone else debug your code. I once had a senior developer use two-letter variables to hold numbers. Okay, now RMB is up to 6 and RF is 3 when it crashes. Have you ever found out what they mean? Job security? Someone once said to me that it's more likely to have the opposite effect. If your code is unreadable, people aren't going to want to work with you, and your company is more likely to have someone else redo the code cleaner, because it's less of a hassle than trying to understand it every time they need to access it. Peeing all over the public toilet seat. You know someone will desperately need to poop, and now you forced them into a terrible decision. I was so sick of cleaning other women's piss. Just to sit. They're freaking animals. Now with COVID, people seem tidier. LMAO, I walked into the bathroom at work on 2 different days last week and there was poop smeared on the toilet seat. 2 different poops? I've seen a brown hand smear on the lid of the toilet before, and on 2 separate occasions at separate locations, I've seen poop on the ceiling. No idea how it got there. I hope they did a handstand and shot it out like a cannon instead of fishing it out and flinging it. Or maybe they just squeezed it out so hard that it ricocheted out of the bowl and hit the ceiling. Class pets, especially rodents. They're almost never given appropriate care. They're put in unsuitable cages. Think of all the class hamsters that get stuck and die in those colorful plastic tunnels, and they rarely live anything resembling their full lifespan. If class pets are meant to teach kids about responsibility, teach them the proper requirements instead of subjecting the poor animals to awful conditions and the stress of little kids trying to grab and pet them. I totally agree. My kindergarten had an alternative approach that I think was actually fairly beneficial. We had a stuffed panda, our mascot, and each week, a new student would bring him home and document what they did with him, write a little diary entry, and take pictures for the class photo album. This gave the kids that lesson in responsibility. Obviously not the same as a real animal, but we all took it very seriously, but without putting an innocent animal into a harmful situation. I wish more schools would do away with the class pets and opt for something similar to what we had. Yes. My class did this, but with a koala. We took it home for a week, and at the end we got a tiny copy of it to keep. I forgot about that until now. Thanks for bringing back the memory. Requiring you to get an auto inspection at a place that also does auto repairs. The inspector has literally every incentive to not pass your vehicle on the first go. Mandatory state inspections ought to be done by state inspectors that don't really have a financial stake in whether you pass or fail. Mandatory state inspections ought to be done by state inspectors that don't really have a financial stake in whether you pass or fail. This is how it works in Northern Ireland and is the only part of the UK where that is the case. It goes back to the days of the Troubles when garage owners might be doing bad things to vehicles or are encouraged to pass vehicles that really should fail, etc. Putting all the test centers in government hands declared much of that. Some places do that. Massachusetts has both DMV testing sites and accredited garages. You'll wait in a long line at the DMV place, but you won't get ripped off. Family YouTube channels. I don't think there is ever a healthy way to profit off your kids like that. Yes, and the channel that adopted a kiddo from China, I think, going against all the sage advice they got from lawyers, med profesh etc. They got the kiddo and kiddo needs a lot of support, attachment disorder, on autism spectrum. In a hoe she goes on her channel with her husband fake crying, fake remorse, telling the sad tale of having to rehome their son. My rage is coming on. Let me find a link. Micah Stauffer, backlash after YouTubers give up adopted son. Okay, so I hope more than anything that kiddo will get what he needs in a family. And family channels, they are horrible and exploitative. Edit. I also think foster families who adopt children and return them to child protection services are also reprehensible. Especially when the children and teens are returned to the system because of behavioral issues. Medical education. These are your future doctors. Why do we insist they be broken before they even practice? When residency was originally instituted, students could sleep in the spare beds when they weren't busy helping, so it wasn't quite as bad. The general idea was to have them live on site so that they would learn by osmosis. To be fair, it worked. The problem is that nowadays most hospitals have gotten rid of the beds, so now the residents are going sleepless. They usually have beds. The issue is that, while back in the day they might admit 3 to 6 patients a night, now they are admitting 20 plus regularly, and advances in medical technology have vastly increased the complexity of care. So the beds are there, the time to sleep in them is not. Declawing cats. Cutting off half their fingers. Most vets won't do it anymore. I know this because I have an aunt that insisted on getting her cat declawed on all 4 paws, and she had to switch vets, call like 20 plus places and travel relatively far to do it. Hate to say it, but that's likely because she wanted a 4-paw declaw. Most vets will do front paw declaw, they shouldn't, but they do anyway. You're right. I've worked in vet hospitals. There are quite a few vets who will still do the front paws. Sure, they'll try to talk you out of it, but they'll still do it sometimes. That being said, I've never heard of anyone agreeing to do the back feet. Making your 90-year-old grandma/grandpa with end-stage dementia a full code. CPR and defibrillation are violent and painful. We will break their ribs while doing CPR. Possibly all of them. It's just plain cruel. As a nurse, it is the worst part of my job. Not the dying, not the blood, not the poop, it's the keeping someone alive by force. I understand losing a loved one is painful and horrible, I've been there. But trust me, the kindest thing you could do for them is to let them die peacefully. Agreed. We need to normalize the talk about end-of-life care. We need to be big enough to be clear about how much resuscitation is desired and what quality of life is priority. Do you guys not have do not attempt cardiopulmonary resuscitation, DNA CPR or DNAR? This is quite common where I'm from and studying. The doctors will advise you and your family of the risks of attempting CPR and how your quality of life may be greatly reduced afterwards. Yeah, we have DNR, do not resuscitate, as a choice, but if the person who is dying is not of sound mind, their family makes the decision whether they have it or not. Goldfish bowls. Your 1-year-old stunted little goldfish didn't live a long time, Felicia. Can't remember where I read it, but supposedly the whole goldfish in a little round bowl thing came from Westerners seeing Asian fish on display in bowls. They didn't know that the fish actually lived in a pond and were just on display for the evening. Yeah. In fact, I believe fish bowls are illegal in China because they recognize that it suffocates the fish. No disturbance of water equals no oxygen. Didn't realize that when I was a kid, just suffocating my fish to death. Medical residences. Institution mandates years of working 80+ hours a week and being paid the equivalent of a minimum wage hourly. The merit for experience is sound, but these residents are being paid crap, while the patients are still being charged the full rate. It's an absolute profit machine. Then, once the residents are experienced enough, they are punted off, and a new herd is brought in to exploit. Bonus points for Stockholming the new herd into thinking they learned so much from having to stay awake for so long, and operating on people with the functional capabilities of a drunk person, and then looking down their nose at anyone who think they can be a competent medical professional without licking the of the attending. This is the worst of it all. Doctors are taught, and will remain convinced their whole lives, that they can totally function on a 100% capacity while sleep deprived. Docking a dog's tails and or ears. I'm against this if you are doing it for no reason. However, we had to amputate our Great Dane's tail. Is that the same thing, due to medical issues? No. It is definitely not the same thing. Amputation is a safe and helpful process that, in more cases than not, solves much more problems than it creates. Amputation can help prevent infection, which can end up being a lot of pain for your pet, while docking is just a cosmetic upgrade done by heartless people. I wouldn't say it's the same thing. We had a dog growing up that had a cyst on its ear that wasn't cancerous, but was bothering the dog. We had the floppy part of the ear cut off, and the dog lived a long happy life. If your dog has its tail removed for a reason other than it hitting things when it's happy is annoying, or it looks cool, I personally think that wouldn't be thought of as cruel by anyone who knows the deal. Holding the door for someone way behind you and watch the person jog the last distance. I hate this so much. Feels rude if I don't hurry up to get to the door, but I look ridiculous when trying to hurry, lol. It's really a social stalemate though, isn't it? Either one person has to run and catch up, or the other person has to look like a jerk because they held the door open a bit too long and now they are going to slam it in your face if they let go. I just wait by the door and look at the signage or hours till they make the few steps required. Takes 5 seconds and I can avoid all eye contact. Bonus points for older ladies / gents. Open the door and say after you, sir / ma'am. 99% of the time, the smile is worth it. I have a good one. If you see an older person in a store or in public, just say morning. They almost always reply instantly with morning. Doesn't work on people my age though, they just give you an odd look. Letting kids go without school lunch if their parents didn't put money in their lunch accounts. Or the fact that lunch accounts exist in the first place. Even crueler is when kids go to pay for their food, discover they have no money in their account, and the lunch ladies throw their food in the trash. What the actual it's that? I understand they can't put the food back to serve to another kid, B/C contamination, but why throw it away? Why not just let the poor kid have it and mark it as an IOU? Having your poverty publicity announced is already an embarrassing slap in the face. Throwing the food away is just kicking a starving kid when they are already down. It's inhumane and traumatizing. Enthusiastically agreeing to a date and then ghosting them day if. Like, come on. Just tell me you don't want to go out if you don't want to go. Another thing I've noticed lately with dating is similar to this. Talking to someone for a little and enthusiastically making plans to do something later in the week. Conversations go on as normal during the week, and that day you do in fact hear from them, only to have them not bring up the agreed upon plans. You eventually have to ask as the day turns into night, so are we still on for tonight? For them to say, oh, did you still want to do something tonight? Oh yeah, we can if you want. Like, excuse me? We made plans. Was that not your intention? I find it somewhat cruel because you've maybe planned your week around this date and not accepted other plans for someone to pretend like it never happened, making you then have to go back and reread texts to see if you misinterpreted something. I got asked out in high school by a girl I was sorta interested in, and she ghosted me the day of. It really sucked because I had classes with her, so the week after she ghosted me I saw her. She had some issues, so I'm not too mad a few years down the line, but it really ruined our friendship. Every teacher assigning hours of homework. I mean, I never did it. But still, lol. And every teacher thought their homework was the most important. There was also no collaboration or agreement between teachers. Hence you just got swamped, had to prioritize something, and got absolutely crucified no matter what. When I was at school we had a handbook that said you will not normally be asked to do homework at the weekends. Guess what? Yep, kind of obvious, really. When the parents brought this up, the school's response was to reissue the handbook. Even heard stories of some kids packing schoolwork into their hold luggage and taking it on foreign holidays when school was out for half term or whatever, just so they could keep up. It was the same at university. Recharge your BTTOIES and just do this essay while you're at it. Absolute joke. In my 9-to-5 salaried career I have never had to do anything like that. I'm in a teaching course and this one part has bothered me for a while. It says we should assign 10-20 meters of HW per class, per grade level. It's not much in elementary. But in middle school? High school, 10-minute x grade 8x7 classes equals 9.3 hours of HW they're supposed to do a night. No wonder our kids are stressed and depressed. I can't, man. I will not be that teacher. Making people work in open plan offices, that is, no dividers between cubicles. They're horrible for productivity, and it can hurt your career progress if you do a poor job simply because your employer gives you a work environment that's too distracting. Didn't you hear? It's the hip new trend for startups. IDK how anyone could focus or get any work done, especially when that office has many recreational activities for the workers in the building. When I'm at work, I'm in work mode and need to be focused. Even if the boss allowed us some recreational activity in the office for a break, I still wouldn't be able to focus because I'd be thinking about going back to work. Open plan offices really only work in jobs that require more collaboration between the teams, such as newspapers and so on. If it's a job where you're working on individual projects, then having dividers between cubicles is necessary so long as you have meeting rooms set aside for collaborative group work. Academia. Imagine studying 10 years, achieve the highest qualification of any country, and then being paid like no job prospects and little to no system of increasing your worth. Your only hope is waiting for some old senile fart to die or give up his cushy salary and career. Oh, the best part is that a large portion of your job will be begging for money to do your job and watching the university skim of the top. No one tells you this when you start, and you're often too invested to just drop it all when you hit the postdoc level. I've seen this career path literally leave people broke and alone with no prospects and too old / specialized / brainwashed to even consider trying a career change. That's why everybody says get real life experience before grad school. It's absolutely necessary because that PhD is more useful in the workforce. Honestly, this is the way, and wish someone told me. I met a older person recently who started his PhD. Turns out he's a senior VP for a well-known pharma company, and he's only doing it because Harvard will not make him a professor without it. Those of us who go the traditional route have to suffer in the hopes of this job. This man achieved the same, but is also a millionaire. Meeting him really opened my eyes. Periods. The bleeding and the cramps are the least of my worries. After 30 I had the privilege of leveling up to menstrual migraines, fevers and hormonal acne. My mood is constantly sour as hell despite me not letting it be known to my family and friends, because I don't want them to have to deal with my I crack jokes to deal with it, but I honestly feel pissed at everything all the time during, and when I don't feel pissed I just feel bone deep exhaustion and just want to sleep, and sleep and sleep. My entire body feels like a painful pus-filled boil. I hate it. Cannot wait for menopause. I have very painful periods despite having a decently high pain tolerance. I took something like 4 ibuprofen and 2 Tylenol spaced out from each other about twice a day and then used a heating pad to get comfortable when I need to. I get exhausted so easily I basically checked out whenever I had one. That and heavy flow means it was so nice when I got on birth control, which I isn't accurately named, and started having 4 a year instead of 12 with somewhat lesser pain and flow. I got my first period at age 11 and went years without any form of birth control for them, and it was awful. Felt like I didn't ever get a break. People don't seem to realize the similarities between bad period pain and labor. The same muscles are working. I had a primarily back labor and I have back-based period pain. Labor was the same, but just much worse, and it came in waves. But the type of pain itself was not unknown to me. I'd been feeling it since my teens. It's horrible and exhausting in a bone-tiring way that's impossible to impart if you haven't felt it. And that's just periods. They're no joke. I vomited from pain twice, ever, and I was an athlete. Many a coach tried to achieve this labor and a particularly awful period when I was 22. Magnifying glass and ants, or slugs and salt when you're a kid. Oh my god, it didn't even register how cruel that was at that age. Just magnifying glass and burning stuff equals cool. Salty foamy chemical reaction equals cool. The what or object just didn't register for some reason. Also I did burn other non-living things and do other science chemical experiments lol, so I think it was more an interest in the science rather than some sick interest in animal cruelty. I was never a mean or cruel kid and cared about animals, but as an adult I feel so bad about it now. I did the salt/slug thing one time, and I swear I have trauma from it lol. I felt so bad immediately afterwards and still feel guilt for that poor little slug. I think I was probably 11 years old at the time, and I'm now 44. RIP little sluggy. Same experience. I think I was around 12 and was with 2 other girls. We had found a slug and were talking about how slugs and salt don't mix, and we just went, let's try it out. Immediate regret. I felt so bad. Doug, my friend at school, talks all the time how she would chop up worms and throw them down the storm drain. How she would put salt on slugs and throw slugs and snails around and kill them. She acts like it's totally normal and quirky. Says she was a violent child. No girl, you aren't cool for doing that. She is honestly one of those not like other girls and super annoying. This is the end of the video. Thank you guys for staying with me till the end. If you enjoyed watching this, you might as well watch these too.